Okay, picking up where we left off, let's go ahead and finish up this second part on creating the intro to your Sally walk animation. That looks pretty good to me. And so I'm going to make sure that my layer is selected, all of it's selected, and I'm going to make it a symbol by using the hotkey F8. This time I want it to be a movie clip because I'm going to give it some effects. I'm going to give it a glow. So I'm going to call this moon. And with the properties of that moon, I'm going to scroll all the way down to filters. And just like creating a new scene or a new layer, there's this icon down here at the bottom that says add filter. And you have a limited menu. I want glow. And let's see, I will expand this a little bit so we can see it. I guess that's as big as it gets. So one of the things I want to do first is I want to change the color of the glow. Right now it goes to default and it goes to red. So I can come over here and take a swatch of it. Maybe it's... And you can make it kind of brighter. And I'm going to change the quality to high, just so it looks better. The strength, leave it at 100, but the blur here, if I just hover over it, I can either click and drag to the left or right to make these pixels strength bigger or smaller. I'm going to make it bigger, and you can watch as I scrub over here that the glow of the moon actually gets a little bit more intense. And now when I move it over here, you can see that it has this quaint little glow. And I'll adjust the size of it, get it just right. Holding down shift. Looks pretty good. Maybe give it this nice little tilt to it. Yeah, that's a nice little moon. And I'll give it a starting position at right behind the Eiffel Tower. And now I can't really see it, so I'm going to put these layers that are in front of it into outline mode, just so I can make these adjustments. They're still locked. And I'm going to tween this, but instead of making a tween like we would in classic tween, where we would have to give it a beginning and ending frame, I'm going to create a motion tween. So I have this starting frame. It has to be a symbol to do this. I right click on here, and instead of using what we've been using as a standard, the classic tween, go into motion tween. And from here you can see it's a little bit different now that I've done that. Instead of that purple frames with the arrow on it, it's blue. And so the way to work the motion tween is I move the scrubber on here to create my next keyframe. But instead of actually saying F6 to create a keyframe, I actually click and position this object wherever I want it. And I can actually change the rotation, change the size of it so it's smaller. And I'm going to put it right up here in the corner and zoom in just so you can see that I'm not going out of my action save. And now when I scrub back, zoom out a little bit, when I scrub back you can see that it actually does get a little bit bigger, and I might want to change the rotation on this one, on the beginning one. So it should have this little rotate to it. So it goes from bigger to smaller. And another thing that's really cool about it is it doesn't matter necessarily where you grab it, but with the selection tool, just like any line that you create, let me explain this a little bit better. Okay, so we have this line here that gets created whenever you use motion tween, and what it really means is that this is the line of action that I've just created, and also that each one of these dots represents the frames. So these are the amount of frames that take place in this movement. So with my selection tool, I can actually grab this line and give it an arc, and that will effectively change the movement of this. So now this thing has this nice little arc. We can actually go in and play with the eases here. And when you think of an ease, think of how things move in general. Like if you are in your car and you're at a stop sign, and as soon as you put your foot on the gas, the car doesn't move from stationary to top speed instantly. It actually takes time for it to build up speed, and that's called easing into an action. Same as when you come to a stop, your car doesn't just stop. No matter how hard you put on the brakes, the wheels might stop, but the car still has to has to fight the inertia and eventually slows down. It doesn't just stop. So that's called easing out of an action. So for something like this to look a little bit more believable, we can say that it eases into this action. So it starts off rising a little bit slower and then picks up speed, or we can say that it actually is moving pretty fast and slows to a stop at the top here, and that might look better. So we want to ease out. And if I just scrub one way with the negative sign, you can say that I'm easing in. So that means it's going to start off kind of slow and then build up speed. We definitely want to ease out. And let's ease out to about, go the other opposite way and ease out to about 50. And you can actually have this selected and then type it in there. I'm going to say 50. I'm not going to put a negative sign there, so it's positive, and you have a little reminder that it's easing out. And we can actually play it back and see how it looks. And see how it comes to a nice slow stop from right there. And we'll have it stay there. So next thing I want to do is just select one frame, the ending frame here, and I'm going to copy it and create a blank keyframe here using F7 right after it, so it sort of disappears, and I will paste in place. So now I have this new frame, and it has no animation to it, and we'll just hold it for the duration of this animation. Now at this point of the moon rising, we can say right about here, I want some text to start to materialize. So let's bring back these images here. I don't really need the foreground up yet, and I'm going to put that in front of the moon. So with the moon layer locked, I'm going to create a new layer, call this one text, and create a blank keyframe I guess it doesn't matter, we can put it right here for all that matters. So F7, blank keyframe, and I'm going to go to my text tool. And one thing you want to make sure in your properties before you start creating text is that instead of saying classic text, you have TLF text selected. I'll click anywhere on the stage, and I'll call it something generic. You can be way more creative. I'll call it Sally Walks. Something really generic just for the sake of this class. And I kind of like that text already. And I'll click my selection tool and position it in place. I don't like the color so much. It's kind of hard to see. So with the text selected, I can come over here to the properties panel, click on the color, and change the color. First of all, we want it brighter to go against that dark background and kind of yellow, not too yellow. Again, it has to compete with the moon and the stars, and that's pretty close, but let's make it even brighter just so it's legible. That works. You know, it's there's a lot of competition here, but that works. We can change the size of the font by clicking and scrubbing either left or right here. You know, I kind of like it nice and big. Again, this is a perfect example of why we have title and action save. So action save being the outside border and title save being the inside border. So we definitely don't want our text to go outside these guides that we have created. We want it to stay inside the second one. Otherwise, we risk the chance of it getting cut off by the camera whenever we export it, which would look not good on our behalf. So we want it definitely nice and snug in here. So now we have text. And one thing that we can have it do now is what I was hoping to do is as the moon starts to rise over it, it actually reveals this text. So what I can do is say right around here, I'm going to put a new keyframe, F6, and then as the moon fades over it, we might want to increase this animation some time. So give it another 2 seconds. So we're at frame 72. Get my calculator out and say 72 plus 48 is 120. So at 120, I want to extend everything. So F5. And we can say, and I'm going to drag all of these previous keyframes by selecting them and then clicking and dragging over to the end. So they're over here now. We can say that at this point I actually want the text to start fading out. So I will create a keyframe here, F6, and say about at frame 86, I want the text to disappear. And this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So I want it to start off as invisible. So with the text selected, I'll come back over here into the properties and I'll minimize all of these options and stick with color effect. So if I click the style and go down to alpha, right now I have this scrub here, and I want it to be at 0, so you can't see it at all. And now this frame's already at 100, and it's going to stay at 100. And then at this frame, I also want the text to be at alpha and at 0, and I'll create classic tweens in between these two frames, and this is the effect I get. So if I hit return, and then we'll have this nice subtle animation. Actually, I'm going to move these previous frames that I made at 1 second. I'm going to move them down to, I would say, move them to 48 frames. So 2 seconds. And then from here, I'm going to create classic tweens in between the background layers. And now what I've created is this sort of opening. Oh, and we can reveal all our layers now. So I have this nice subtle opening. Everything's sort of moving into place, getting ready. And it should play seamlessly whenever we export it into a SWF, into the walk and ending layer. I'm going to save it. One thing that probably needs to happen now is, now that I have this moon here in the corner, I'm going to have to make sure that that moon is consistent throughout the rest of the animation. So it's very similar to how we even set up this scene, and the ending scene is I'm going to unlock the moon layer, select the very last frame of it, copy it, go to the walk layer, and again remember the placement, it was in between the night sky and the background. Give it a new layer, title it moon, and in the very first frame I'm going to paste it in place, and I'm going to, you can lock it and go to the end and do the exact same thing. Make sure it's in the mask. You want it in the mask. Title it moon, and I'm going to paste in place the moon. One thing about the moon now, though, is that you'll see right here, it is still plain. So we want it to cut off just like the rest of the animation. So I'm going to select this section of frames, right click on it, remove frames, and now I have a very consistent animation. The moon stays within all of my scenes. I'm going to save it one more time, and when we export it, we'll see what it looks like. And we can always go back and adjust the timing in the intro to make that rise even slower. And everything seems to go together quite nicely. And the next videos to follow, we're going to talk about adding a button, importing music that plays throughout the whole animation, and how to export it into other video files. So, looking good. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. Bring it up on the Mighty Bell, and we'll see what we can't do to resolve those problems. So, thank you.